Agents, would you like to secure more distressed property listings? We can help. This is a case study about how we helped an agent here in San Diego, Shannon Elias, solve for a very difficult distressed seller situation. He needed to collaborate with a local investor, and he needed more than just a cash buyer or a cosmetic rehab. There were a lot of difficulty to solve, so he brought us in, and this is the story about how we turned this home around. So let's dig in. So Andrew, when you and Shannon walked this property, what were some of the issues that you were running into?
Well, first of all, we are investors. We are cash investors, but I like to think of ourselves as problem solvers as well. And that was really what this situation required. This specific property was about 2 weeks away from foreclosure.
So 2 weeks from foreclosure, not a lot of time.
So we had a small window to work with. The previous owner started demolition of the property, and he took out some bearing walls, which are pretty important in a 2-story condo with adjacent buildings. When that happened, the HOA got involved. They wanted the problem rectified. He was not in the capacity to do so. They opened litigation. By the time we were involved, it was about $250,000 in attorney fees and lawsuit involved. So
$250,000. Wow. Okay.
So the HOA came in. They brought the city in, of course. The city filed liens against the property and temporarily shored up the second floor, which is really important. I think there were 4x4s scattered throughout the first floor, which we'll see later. On top of that, there were other contractors that were brought in to try to remedy that. That would be an engineer, an architect. They were left unpaid, unfortunately.
So he had not paid them because he ultimately...
Correct. So here's where the problem lies. You can imagine the stress involved. The previous owner then suffered a stroke, was taken away for care. He was incapacitated, was not able to resolve any of these problems. The power of attorney happened to be a sister who lived in New York. So she wasn't familiar with this property. She was given a really short window to resolve everything, and
it was overwhelming.
When he did leave, though, he did leave one asset behind. It happened to be a tenant, which wasn't willing to leave the property.
Why couldn't Shannon bring in just any investor or any cash buyer to solve these problems?
Well, that's a good question. Obviously, there are a number of solutions that a realtor can traditionally do, which is want a traditional buyer. The problem with this one, because of the demolition and the instability of the property and the liens filed by the city, it wouldn't qualify for a certificate of occupancy, so it couldn't get a loan. A traditional buyer couldn't come in.
Okay.
The other problem, and the biggest problem, is there are other cash investors out there. However, with a $250,000 lawsuit tied to the property, it wouldn't have been profitable for a traditional cash buyer. So if you can't resolve the problems, you can't find value, and the property will be gone to foreclosure.
I want to brag on Andrew a little bit, because really what made this foreclosure, what stopped this foreclosure, was Andrew's ability to negotiate. That is one of his greatest skills, is to be able to see the big picture. There were a lot of players that were all very intense and not on the same page, right? There was a lot of emotion. And so Andrew was able to get everybody to the table to come up with a solution that would make this work for everybody. And so let's talk about that, because that's really the key of this. Talk about the negotiation that took place.
Right. Oftentimes it's not just bringing in cash. A lot of people can do that. What we tried to do was find an ultimate solution for everybody so we could expedite this process. The biggest issue was the HOA. With a $250,000 litigation lawsuit against the property, nothing was going to happen. So the first step was to get a coalition of the HOA board, got them to see what the big picture was, found out what their end goal was, and create a win-win solution to get there. By getting the HOA on board, we were able then to negotiate directly with their attorney. And again, it started off with a $250,000 litigation. After a couple counters, they brought it down to about $30,000. By the time we were done, they saw the value in eliminating the litigation entirely so that we can close the property on time, renovate the property, and get it back to the HOA guidelines and standards. And if we didn't do that, it would have been caught up in the courts, it would have been caught up in the banking system, probate, and probably no progress for half a year.
Yeah, and that's huge, right? Because 30,000 is very fair, but it still wasn't going to allow us to make everybody in the scenario whole. And so Andrew really kept negotiating until we can create a win-win for all parties. And it's amazing. Stop the foreclosure, and then we know that they also wanted to do a lot of due diligence on us because they also need to make sure that this is a high-end gated community in La Jolla, and they wanted to make sure we were well funded. They wanted to look at our past projects. They wanted to make sure that the finishes and the quality work that we do were the quality of this neighborhood. So that was another hurdle that needed to be passed. And then let's talk about the wins. What were some of the wins in this situation? We had some big wins.
Absolutely. I think the biggest win was we're able to bring cash to the table to purchase property before the foreclosure, which meant that the owner, instead of being foreclosed upon, being saddled with debt they had to carry forward, they're able to walk away with a big chunk of money and not have to deal with the problem anymore.
Yeah, they had 2 weeks, and remember that the sister was all the way in New York, knew nothing about how to solve for this. So she was actually able to walk away with a profit versus a loss.
So that was huge. Another thing, and what we find a lot of value in, is that our realtor partner, Shannon, who brought us in to solve this problem for him, was able to get the commission on the sale. And once the property is fully renovated, he'll get the relisting on the back end and make a great chunk of money as well. So again, we try to create a win-win for everybody.
So about $55,000 in commissions that maybe others wouldn't have been able to do with all the problems. And so I think we also paid off the architect and the engineer.
We made everybody whole. We paid the city liens. We paid the architect in full. We paid the engineer in full. We were able to get rid of the squatter, which was big. And, at the end of the day, we're going to create a beautiful home for a family and a great addition to the community.
Wonderful. So if you have, first of all, we want to thank Shannon for the opportunity to work with you on this project. And if you do have distressed listings and you'd like to collaborate, we can certainly make cash offers, but we also do seller renovations where we will come in and fund the cost of the renovation, manage the demo, the design, the entire process, nothing that the seller or the agent needs to do, and then we'll deliver that property beautiful. And most of the time these have multiple offers first day on the market. And so why don't we go take a tour of this home, because you're going to be amazed by some of the crazy things we found inside this home.
So we're here at the property now, and here's one of the issues that we came across. This is the backyard. You notice the big hole. This once was a fill, and the previous owner wanted to put in a pool. The problem with that is that we have this transverse sewer line down at the base, and that is actually part of HOA community property, and so you can't really put a pool on it. So one of our first steps is going to be to cap the sewer line, do a slurry backfill, re-landscape the backyard. So here's another issue we came across with the property. This actually was a bearing wall supporting the second floor. As you can see, it's missing. The city had to come in and shore this up, but this actually supports the second floor, which then supports the roof trusses. So we're going to resolve this problem. So here's another issue we had with this property. This entire wall was built about 2 feet into the garage. The problem with that is it's not supported to code. So we have two options. We can bring this wall back, or we can keep it out there and dig footings and reinforce this entire wall between the garage and the house. Let's look at the next problem. So you've seen some of the structural issues that we're dealing with. Our goal in every property we come into is to create top dollar and top value in the property. This is only a 2-bedroom home, about 2,200 square feet, but as you can see, we have a sitting area that was at one point closets. These will be reverted back to 2 large walk-in closets, one for the secondary bedroom. And as you notice, also there is no wall here. Those are really important for value and a little privacy. So this is the second floor of the house, and we're going to show you some more issues. Follow me.
All right, here's something that's not to code. This is zip tied together, and somebody could fall through this space. So we're definitely going to get this fixed. We hope you enjoyed that tour. To see more situations like this, please go to Facebook and follow us at Integrity Home Solutions Group.